Stats Canada says divorce rates are declining in Canada, although we are not yet perfect. There is such a thing as a friendly divorce, and there is the other, a messy divorce. Dr. Kathleen Reay is a psychologist and divorce expert who has a manual for parents called Toxic Divorce. It explores Parental Alienation Syndrome, or PAS, and it is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Kathleen Reay to Studio 4 to tell us more.
Thank you for having me.
Well, nice to see you. Is that a new term, PAS?
No, actually the term was coined by Dr. Richard A. Gardner back in 1985, and interestingly enough, there is a tremendous amount of psychiatric literature that goes back to at least 63 years ago and 200 years of legal literature relating to this very topic.
Well, I know today is Parental Alienation Awareness Day. The mayor said so.
Yes.
So what does that mean, parental alienation?
Parental alienation is a general term that refers to a child who refuses to have contact with a parent for various reasons. Now, a number of contributing factors can relate to that. The first is parental physical abuse, sexual abuse, significant mental abuse, child neglect, child abandonment or rejection.
Okay.
Other kinds of things like that. Now, when that
Now that's
occurs,
a serious reason to not talk to your parent or distance yourself from the parent.
Exactly. So that's what we refer to as justifiable alienation. However, parental alienation syndrome is different than that. Parental alienation syndrome occurs when one parent is identified to systematically program or brainwash a child against the other parent. And in that particular case, the child begins to make active contributions as well.
Okay, and we all know couples, unfortunately, who use their kids as pawns or messengers, depending.
Yes, that's so very, very true.
When they're divorcing, when they're separating, when they've separated, when somebody else comes into the relationship and he runs off with the neighbor.
Exactly.
Oh my, oh my.
Oh my, oh my is right, yes. And when that happens and the children are being used as pawns, clearly they're caught in the middle, and that actually elicits a tremendous amount of emotional harm on that child.
And we, I know, are supposed to be all grown up, aren't we?
Supposed to be.
Yeah, when we're 20-something and married, we're supposed to be the mature ones, and the kids are the kids. But as you know, in the work you do, oftentimes,
Yeah, sometimes actually what happens is parental role reversal takes place, where the child will actually end up playing the role of the parent. And this may be a parent who is very depressed and going through an incredible grieving process, and they're not able to be the parent that they perhaps used to be. And so the child now is playing that role. However, that child then becomes robbed of his or her childhood.
Sure, very much so. And I know many children think there's something they've done wrong, and that's why their parents aren't getting along or why their parents are splitting up, and it must somehow be their fault.
Very true. Many children blame themselves, not just children, but adult children of divorce. There's many people that I've worked with who are 25, 35, 45 and up, whose parents have divorced, either back in the past or in the present, and they still, for whatever reason, will take ownership for it and blame themselves.
Really?
Yes.
Even at that age?
Absolutely.
So you never quite get over it, depending on what happens at the time. So, typical couple, loved each other madly, or didn't, got married, divorce. Where do you start? How do you tell the children? What do you do?
Well, it's very, very important that both parents together discuss it with all of the children at once. And the reason being is that way the children will not feel like they're forced to take sides, and they're hearing the same story or the same narrative from the parents.
Okay, so mom and dad have to buck up and call the family meeting. Oh, we hated those, didn't we? Family meeting, what's up? But it does make sense if the two of you can get on the same page and decide how you're going to tell the children. And what do you say? Do you tell them the truth, like if one has found another, or How much detail do you go into?
No, you don't want to go into any negative issues of why the marriage has ended, but rather you want to tell the children that this is a very sad thing that's happening, and that, you know, that you regret that it's happening. However, both of you have made a mature decision that it really is what's in the best interest of everybody.
Right. I have some friends recently who split up, and one of the things they said was, we will always take care of one another. And we want you to know that. We will always take care of one another, and we're both sad about this. And so many people say, we failed. And my friend says, you don't fail. It's just part of the journey. Didn't work out. But you're not a failure because you leave a marriage.
That's right, exactly. And the other important thing to keep in mind is, when you have really young children, be prepared to have to repeat why you're separating or divorcing several times.
Okay, and how young, when is a child able to absorb it? 2, 3?
No, that's
young?
Very, very young. Yeah,
Okay.
and so in that case, you really want to speak to their own language, so to speak. And in a case like that, you can use terms like, you know, that we're no longer going to live in the same house together, and there's going to be a mummy's house and there's going to be a daddy's house. As the children start getting a little bit older, 7, 8 years old, then you're able to expand on that a little bit more. However, to the point again that you want to really be empathic. And this is something that can be somewhat problematic during a separation or a divorce, is parents sometimes lose the ability to focus on the fact that these children need to have their emotional needs met. And often is the case, the children's emotional needs are being neglected, or perhaps they are, you know, just not getting them done the way that they really need them to be met.
Or you get into court and it gets messy, and it doesn't always get messy in court. I know there are some mediators who help people work it out. But say you were in a really vitriolic, big money divorce, all of that, the kids absorb it. They know.
Absolutely, and that is where parental alienation tends to ensue. High battle child custody issues are a major trigger for parental alienation syndrome.
And if you're a mom and your daughter or your son decides they don't like you, they only like dad, for whatever reason, dad was right, mom was wrong, or vice versa, what do you do?
Well, it's really interesting because, first of all, as a therapist, it's very important to clearly recognize what the signs are of parental alienation, and again, to determine whether it's justified or it's unjustified.
Okay.
So if I can just kind of go into that, that might be helpful for the audience to understand. There are actually 8 different manifestations of parental alienation syndrome. The first one is where the child actually does align with what we refer to as the favored or the preferred parent. And they engage in denigrating the unfavored, or what we call the rejected, targeted, or alienated parent.
Right.
So the child is actually making active contributions that way. The second manifestation is that the child's rationalizations for denigrating or hating the parent are absolutely absurd. They're weak, they're ludicrous. I'll give you some examples, Fanny.
Yeah.
There's times where I've worked with kids where they'll say something like, my mommy and daddy don't know how to wash the bed sheets properly. Huh is right, you know, or mommy or daddy don't know how to bake macaroni and cheese. Or, and here's one that I just heard recently, a little 7-year-old girl who had just returned from what appeared to be a beautiful vacation in Disneyland with her dad, according to Dad. This was during his visitations. And it turned out, the little girl says to me, can you believe it, Dr. Reay? My dad had the nerve to take me to Disneyland for spring break. Who the heck wants to go there?
Gee, a spoiled child, I would think, but maybe not. It's just, it's something to do, it's deeper, isn't it?
It's much deeper than that. It's because the child, again, is being so deeply programmed. And the alienating parent may do this in subtle ways, may do this unknowingly, unconsciously.
Right, and you know they've heard it somewhere.
Exactly.
If you're the other parent, you know that thought did not form in that child's brain, that it's come from somewhere else, and it's probably your ex-spouse has said something, and they're innocent, the children, and they blurt it out, and you think, okay,
right,
what's up over there? Or dad has a new girlfriend. How about that one?
Yeah.
There's a girl slept over. What? Hello, Harry? No, I know. It's complex and complicated,
very, very
as you
much
know.
so.
We'll come back and go through the rest of the list. Dr. Kathleen Reay, our guest. Her book is called Toxic Divorce, a workbook for alienated parents.